everyone, welcome back to another video. Welcome back to another grey day here in this UK summer we're having. And in this episode we're going to be fitting the aircon belt on my 2003 Subaru Forester. First thing we're going to do is remove the throttle cable from these clips so we can remove this plastic cover. We go to, since this one goes to a pedal and this one I believe is for a cruise control. So there are two 10mm, one here and one here. So let's get this out and have a look what we got underneath. Once we take the plastic cover off, we can remove the clips. As you can see, if you go long nose pliers like them, what you can do is just press them in there like so and then push them down. Okay, so we got that out of the way. You can remove it from here as well, so you got a bit more space to work with. And this is what we're working with: crank pulley right there, power steering pump, alternator, AC compressor. As you can see, it hasn't been used in years because it's a bit corroded, just like on a crank pulley right there as well. That is where our AC belt is going to be sitting. To put our AC belt on, we need to remove the auxiliary belt first. As you can see, the auxiliary belt is being tensioned by this bolt and this bolt here. So what we're going to do is loosen first this bolt here, and then we're going to loosen this one at the top. In theory, you should be able to put a bit of pressure on your alternator and then push it down, which will release the tension from the belt and you'll be able to remove it. If it's too stuck, instead of, I've seen some people hit it with a hammer and shit like that, what we recommend you to do is just loose this one a bit so your alternator can tilt and then you can remove the belt securely. If you worry that when you put the belt back on you won't have the same tension, there are many ways to actually check if the tension on your belt is good or bad. For example, in theory, when you push here, the slack shouldn't be greater than 1/4 of an inch, which is around, I think, 0.62 centimeters. Alright, so the way that you can check that is, as I said, measuring the tension from there, or for example, like you can see right there, I've got marks. So what I did is I marked this bolt here and I marked the bracket right there, and then I marked it right here as well and right there. So I know those marks should match. And if you think, oh yeah, but that's lower than this, yeah, but what I did is I put my pen there and basically I just went like this, so you mark right the top and right the bottom at the same time. Okay, so that is perfectly fine. My slack here is not greater than 1/4 of an inch, so we are on the ball. What we're going to do now, as I said, is loosen this bolt here, which is a 12mm. It's going to be a bit tight, so we loosen that up just like that. Don't need to remove the bolt all the way, just loosen it. And now we're going to do the same thing with this one. As you can see, the mark on the bolt is right there, so that would be matching with that other mark that we made. Once we got them to loose, what we're going to do is come this way, loosen this one, which is a 12 as well. It's going to be tight. So you see, once we loosen that one up, it's going to be a lot easier for us. As you see the alternator can tilt a lot easier, and that's putting tension to the belt, taking tension off. So what you need to do now, just keep going with this one a bit more, just like that. Put it down, push your alternator down, And there you go. The auxiliary belt is out. Now we put that in a safe place. Let's not lose it. And we're going to proceed to install our AC belt. I don't know if you can notice. Yeah, you can see it right there. It's raining, so great. Alright, before we install our AC belt, there's one thing I learned that I didn't know. I suppose that's what learning means. Anyway, I've got two Subarus. I got the Forester, which is a 2003. Brilliant. And I got an Impreza, which is NA, which is 2010. From 2007 onwards, I think it is, the AC belt became stretch belts. So my 2010 Impreza, that has a stretch belt, and I thought this one would have it as well. But as I said, I did a bit of research. I talked to some people, and no, apparently for this one, we need something else that I acquired, and I'm going to show you right now. As the name says, you have to stretch it over the pulley and over the other pulley. Normally, you got a tool that helps the belt to be pushed over, either if you installing it or removing it, so you don't damage the actual belt, so you don't damage the grooves here, right? But this one doesn't have a stretch belt, and now I'm going to show you what I need to actually fit our AC belt. So while it's raining, we go in the garage, and I'm going to show you what I had to buy in order to install the AC belt. So what I had to buy is this. I had to buy a bracket. All this is second hand because where I buy the parts from, which is I always mention it, I think, is ACP. They did have the pulley, right? They did have the long bolt with the nuts there to lock it in place, and the nut for this as well. All right, so we can move our pulley up and down and then we can tension it, but they didn't have the bracket. So I had to go on eBay. I went to an eBay marketplace everywhere, trying to find it, and I managed to find one. So now that we got the bracket and the pulley, let's throw it into the car. So the way that the bracket is going to sit is in these two factory bolts, just like that. And now our belt is going to go around the crank pulley, around that pulley, and into a compressor. And that is going to work the same way that the one right here works. So it's going to pick up the slack of the belt, and we're going to be able to tension it to our like. As I said in a few videos ago, I made a mistake, so you don't have to. So don't be like me and put your fucking bracket in before you put your belt on. Because if you think about it now, look at this. If you think about it, that pulley is quite close to the block. You can see it right there, right? So we won't be able to put this belt up and over that pulley because that pulley is against the block. So there's not enough gap to slide the belt between the pulley and the block. So don't be like me, don't put this in first. Put your belt in first and then put the bracket. We're going to put the aircon belt now on, if I can actually reach it. So that's on the crank pulley, and now we drop it in the compressor. As you can see, that's all in. Once the bracket is fitted, we're going to tighten them two up. You can torque them to 23 Newton meters, and as I said before, that ball should be loose and the nut down there for the pulley should be loose. What we're going to be doing now is starting to tighten this one up until we get 1/4 of an inch slack in the belt. And once that's done, the last thing to do is going to be tighten that nut down there for a pulley. After that, what we're going to do is basically go back to the beginning and reverse the process. We're going to put now our auxiliary belt back on, make sure that that's nice and tight, get 1/4 of an inch. If you can see there, my AC belt is actually touching the alternator, but that's only because, if you remember, we loosen it. Alright, so don't worry if you get the same result. Now that we've got both belts on and they're nice and tight, what we're going to do is start the engine and make sure they don't squirm. This is what happens when you buy second-hand parts. I don't know if you can hear it, but the tensioner pulley is worn, so you can hear the bearing screaming at you. I'm going to replace that off camera. And once you go to this point, if your one is not screaming like mine is, what you should do, let me turn the engine off. At this point, if you only replacing the belt and your AC was working fine before you replace the belt, what you should do is just turn the engine on, put your AC on, and make sure that it works as good as it was before. If you're like me and you actually installing a new belt because you didn't have one, what you're gonna have to do is take it to a place where they can re-gas it for you. Or if you're like me and you work in a garage, you can take it to your garage if your boss lets you. And like me, I'm just gonna take it. I know it has gas in it because I have checked it. I did a vacuum leak before I actually bought the belt and everything, just to make sure that the system was good. So I'm gonna take it to work, re-gas it, and I'll show you, I'll put a clip after this, how cold it gets. And as you can see, it hasn't stopped raining for the whole time that I've been doing this, so I'm a bit soaked. So I'll catch up with you as soon as I re-gas the aircon. England would never stop surprising you. Look at this. We're getting into the 30 degrees for almost a whole week. So you're gonna actually be able to use our aircon to enjoy it, even if it's for a short period of time. So I'm very pleased with that. And with that, we're gonna end the video here. So thank you for watching, thank you for liking, thank you for subscribing if you do, and I shall see you very shortly.